Another example I can give, I have to mention Pastor Sam at least once a message, otherwise it's not a message. I had a conversation with Pastor during the COVID times, and I remember I came to him and like, we've got these government guys, United Australia Party and all these Christian groups popping up and they're going to save us. It wasn't that dramatic, but you know what I'm talking about. And Pastor goes, it's the same thing every single time. He's seen this stuff happen time and time again. Nothing's going to come out of it. They're all in it for themselves. And I thought, this is the first time I've been through something like this, or at least have an understanding of government. Pastor's already gone through this, and so I thought, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Today, where are they? Where are these groups that were going to save us? Where are these people? And you look back and you think, oh man, he was right. But he wasn't right at the time. I didn't think he was right. It doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means that I didn't have enough wisdom to go, okay, I'm going to accept that as truth and just wait and just see how things pan out and follow through. Another example I can give, I had a discussion with Pastor Buren. We've had many talks, but one of the chats we've had is about demon possession. Is demon possession something that happens today? I'm not going to give the answer to that because I'm still thinking about it myself. But say you come to a situation where someone is demon possessed. What do you do? How do you exorcise them? Where does it say in Scripture, how do you do this? Pastor gives a simple answer. He goes, give them the gospel. I'm like, duh, okay. That's wisdom. Very simple, right? And so we have people that we around us that we can talk to, we can pick their brain. We have them before us. Many times you're going to disagree. Now, youth, this is going to happen all the time. You've got something in your mind. You're like, I want this. What do you think? And then someone older than you with more experience says, nah, that's not good. You should do this. Maybe it's you've picked another part, like a partner, or or an investment, or a ministry, or whatever it is, and you've got it in your head. You're like, this is what I want to do, but someone advises you against it, says, no, this is not right. Now, many times you're either gonna, well, not many times, but you got a choice to make. You're either gonna listen or go, you know what, this person knows what he's talking about. I trust the experience. I'll wait. I'll leave it to the Lord. I was there once, and I'll tell you now, it's difficult. It's really hard, but you've got to have wisdom, even a little bit of wisdom, to know that what you're getting is wisdom, to recognize wisdom, okay? A man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a change in your physical appearance, so it doesn't mean that as you get wiser, people look at you and go, that guy looks really wise, right? Like I'm starting to get white hairs, so you guys are probably thinking, Steve's getting really wise. I've been getting white hairs for ages. I've been pretty wise for a while. No, it doesn't mean that, okay? But it does mean that there's a shift in people's perception of you that makes you appear different. It can render a man distinguished, respected, inspire joy, gentleness, endearing in his interactions with others. For me, I keep... this might sound silly to you, but this works for me. I've got things that, little tools and techniques that I use to navigate my way through the world. And one of the things that I do is I know where my weaknesses and my shortcomings are. So I know that there's people out there that I think, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. So what I do is I have mental models of these people. And I use them as references and go, okay, what would that person do in this situation? What would that person do in this situation? Do you guys do the same or not? Maybe? Okay, so I might be a psycho, I have no idea. Okay, I'll give you an example. So Pastor Buddy Smith, right? Has anyone who's met Pastor Buddy Smith? Okay, good. So we know who I'm talking about. You don't know, for me, I don't know what the man's been through, but you can hear the wisdom from what he says. You can hear he doesn't have to say that he's gone through a lot, but you can hear it. You can hear that wisdom come from him, and it validates his, what he's saying, and you go, okay, he's the kind of guy that you could approach. He's wise, he's approachable, you sit down with him, and you can just have a good, long chat and feel good when you walk away. He's very positive. Not when I say positive, I don't mean like, Hillsong, oh, love you, bro, and go nuts. Okay, but what I'm saying is like, it's a nice conversation, it's a good conversation, and you can walk away feeling like you're better for it, right, than when you walked in. Another man I could say as well is Pastor John Hall. This guy's always full of beans if you've met him at the Bible college. But this guy, doesn't matter what, like he's always running up and down the corridor, left, right. He makes me sweat standing there, right? And he doesn't matter what it is, he'll be like, brother, how can I help you? He's the kind of guy, he'll help you and he'll have a smile on his face when he's doing it as well. It's not like, how can I help you? No, I'm busy tomorrow, I'm busy. No, he'll be like, he could be 5 hours away and say, Brian, I need you to help me mow my lawn. And he'll probably drive over and mow your lawn, right? It's just the kind of guy he is. And I think, so, I have these mental models in my mind and I go, okay, I want to be more like that. And you try to strive for that. I mean, even Greg, right? You ask him to do something. You say, brother, can you build me a house? He'll do it. Yes, no worries. He'll have a big smile on his face and he'll do whatever it needs to get it done. I mean, the guy is just happy to do it, right? I could continue, but I don't want to get, some of you guys might have to turn sideways walking out the door. But anyway, you get the idea, right? You see it through these people's faces. You see that there's a resting peace, a joy, there's a confidence, there's a maturity. They say something and you take it for what it's worth. You take the value of what it's worth. So an example of a boldness of his face shall be changed. So this is when you see someone and they initially look scary or whatever. You have an initial judgment of them and then you speak to them and you realize, oh, hold on, this person's actually wise, he's smart. An example I can give you here is like when I used to teach martial arts, I used to have these little kids come in, about 3, 4, 5 years old. They would come in and then they would see the instructor. And they start crying. So they're crying there for like half an hour. But then as they're crying, they're watching me run the class. And I think, okay, I've got to win this kid over, right? So as I'm running the class, I don't do anything that much different, but I just make sure that the kid knows that, it's safe. You walk around, you're giving high fives to the other kids, and then, you're doing things that show that there's no threat, there's nothing to worry about. And so slowly the image of this child of me goes from being this monster to being Barney the dinosaur. So by the end of the class, I've got to pry him off with a crowbar. He's like, and then that's it. Now he wants to come back to training. So what I'm saying is there are times where wisdom can alter the way you look according to people's perceptions. It can change the way people perceive you. Okay, so it's not a physical appearance, but there's something behind it that there's just that's there, and that causes these things to. It's here in the scriptures. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not getting a pseudoscience or pseudo-psychology book. These things happen. Verse 2, I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment, and that in regard of the oath of God. Now we have to remember that when you read the scriptures, they're books or letters or whatever that were written to a group of people at a specific time. So sometimes you can't apply certain things because that's not the context. We're not there anymore, right? So for example, in this situation we see, I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment and that in regard of the oath of God. Now, we don't have a king over us. We have a government. We don't have a king, okay? And the way it works is a little bit different to the way it works with the king, but the principles that are in here are still applicable. You can still apply it to the treatment of government or those who have authority over you. Despite the circumstances, he instructs them to keep the king's commandment and that this falls in line with being obedient with God, since it is God who sets these rulers over us. This wise man should exhibit a cheerful and positive demeanor in his service to the king, okay, or to the government or to the authority over you, whatever. He's to be a loyal and reverential servant to the king. Now, why? Because not only is it his duty, but the wise man is also prudent. In Romans chapter 13, I'll just read that for you guys. If you would like to turn there, that's fine. So Romans chapter 13. You'll recognize the verses, most of you, but let's read it. So chapter 13, verses 1 to 5. We then that are strong, sorry, that's 15, hold on, I can't read. There we go, okay. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. We are to observe and obey all his commands until he blasphemes, denies, or it's against, obviously, the will of God. And then we are obligated to then, obviously, obey God at that point. But we are given the command, we are told that we should obey authority. Even if it's unfair and we have an injustice, something against us, we still have to respect authority over us. And there's a couple of verses that actually give us what we should do in this context. So we'll come to that. But let's continue. Chapter 8, verse 3 and 4. Be not hasty to go out of his sight. Stand not in an evil thing, for he doeth whatsoever pleaseth him. Where the word of a king is, there is power. And who may say unto him, what doest thou? So in the case, again, you get caught up in some sort of injustice, you don't just withdraw yourself from it. You don't walk away. You don't run away from it. You don't hide. Don't follow a hasty impulse. So by doing this, you don't solve any problems and you make the matters worse for yourself. Again, you can apply this to whatever authority, police, council, whatever, but also to family, to, again, people around you. The same principles apply. Doing this will only anger those who have power and control over you, and you have just made yourself more of an enemy to this person. I don't know if you guys saw in America, there was a guy that was being sentenced for assault. He's pleading with the judge. He's like, I'm innocent. Please don't sentence me, blah, blah, blah. So the judge goes, no, I'm giving you a sentence. What does he do? He jumps to the judge's desk and starts physically assaulting her. He's trying to say that he's innocent, but he got punished for the same thing he did the same thing he was being punished for. But hasty impulse, right? He may have felt it was an injustice for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, but it was a hasty impulse. He didn't think of the consequences. He was not a prudent man. That's not a prudent man. The next part of that verse says, stand not in an evil thing. Okay, don't take part in things like insurrection, riots. Don't try and vindicate yourself. Again, I use America as an example because I can. These things are happening quite frequently over there and here as well. But sometimes, you have something where a group of people feel disenfranchised. Well, they go out to the street and they start rioting and getting violent. It doesn't help your cause. It doesn't serve it. In fact, it goes the other way and you become an enemy yourself, right? It doesn't do anything. It has negative consequences. If you have committed an offense, acknowledge the offense and do what you need to do to regain favor. If you haven't done anything, maybe you've been wrongfully accused, well, what do you do then? 1 Peter chapter 2, 18-20. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward, for this is thankworthy. If a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully, for what glory is it if, when ye buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? But if when ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable with God. So if you're going through something and you're like, I don't deserve this, but you're going through it and you're going through it patiently, this is acceptable to God. He sees this. God, God sees this. I don't want to add anything else to that, but you know what I'm talking about. so we take it patiently as this will please the Lord. Okay? And there was a situation where I know someone who has a car in this area, driving around. I'm trying to be vague because it doesn't matter who the person was, but they were driving around, and then they get a call from the police to say, you need to come down to the station, or the policeman came to the house. I don't remember. Anyway, so this person got in trouble, and what happened was this person was accused of going into a roundabout, and then another car hitting that person's car, and then doing a hit and run and driving off. And I know this person, and this is impossible, right? This wouldn't have happened. So we realized that I think there was another kind of area that looked the same, and we think it could have been that car. So we go to the police station, we do the statement, whatever. The policeman was like, oh yeah, we'll look after you guys, blah, blah, blah. Comes out, takes photos of the car, of where it supposedly had hit and then run off. And then went to court. Policeman was sitting in the chair, and they said, do you have any evidence? Do you have any photos of the car, blah, blah, blah? He said, no. He lied. I got angry when I heard that. But what can you do? He lied. And then on top of that, the judge had an attitude as well. So this person, no way, didn't win, lost the case, right? Injustice. What can you do, right? They could have appealed and done, continued to chase it. They just took the punishment and they just left it and then continued. What can you do in a situation like that? Unfortunately, our justice system is pretty shocking. So why must we tread carefully? Because for he doeth whatsoever pleaseth him. All right, we're talking about those who are in positions of power. Unless God intervenes, things are going to play out how they're going to play out. That's just the reality of it, right? Those with power above us have power over you, and you don't want to incite fury and make matters worse when it serves no real purpose. Okay? My dad went to court for something, and the judge asked him a question, and then my dad replied something like, if someone believes this, then they're stupid. So what did the judge do? Sunk his teeth and he goes, you just called me stupid. What do you think happened? Lost the case. Injustice. What do you do? Right? He'd use that as a thing to throw the case out. Not throw the case out so that my dad lost the case. Anyway, so where the word of a king is, there is power. Okay? I think many of us probably know this already. Now, although this advice is big picture, dealing with authorities and those that have power over our lives, again, I remind you that we can still take these principles and apply them to our lives. Chapter 8, verse 5 and 6. Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment, because to every purpose there is time and judgment. Therefore the misery of man is great upon him, for he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be? So not only are we to keep the commandments of the king, the laws, but we're also to keep the commandments of God. You cannot do one without the other, without challenging the will of God. Okay, you've got to have respect for both. You cannot just have respect for one. It breaks in the middle. If we're obedient, we will be delivered and spared from the troubles that afflict the disobedient. Okay, so you're just going on with your life and doing what you're supposed to be doing. Well, then you avoid, the things that you'd be punished for if you were caught doing the wrong things, obviously. A wise man has a discerning heart, recognizes both the timing, which is when, and is able to make a correct judgment, which is how far to take a matter. The sad fact today is that it's a virtue that is lost, the virtue of tactfulness, which is possessed by very few people. We are encouraged to continue to be obedient to those who have authority over us. And it is not necessarily an obedience characterized by the willingness to serve and please others with blind commitment. Solomon here is just discussing general principles. So again, these are things that we can then look at and take them and apply them to our situation. Someone said, the certainty of retributive justice is so strong in his mind that he does not resort to rebellion in order to rectify matters, but possesses his soul in patience, leaving the correction of abuses in God's hands. Right? That just takes a load off your shoulders. There's that verse in Romans chapter 12, 19 and 21. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. So God instructs us to treat our enemies with kindness and leave the rest to him. Easy and hard at the same time. Okay, but it relinquishes you or relieves you of that need to seek justice, because the Lord will then take care of it in his own hands, and it works. Okay, there's times where I've just gone, look, Lord, I'm going to leave it with you. Left it with him. Whatever he does, it's up to him. It doesn't matter. But me, I'm at peace. He punches him, he punches him. He doesn't, he doesn't. It doesn't matter. It's with the Lord. You know that what his judgment is best, so you leave it with him. There's no wise man, astrologer, seer, whatever the other officers that they held back in the time of, when we're looking at, say, Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel. Even to this day, even with technology that we have, right? We've discussed before, they can't even get the forecast right. Okay? There's nothing that you can do to determine things that are going to come in the future. Only God can determine these things. And we have that example, if you don't know already, in the book of Daniel, when Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, but he forgets the dream. So he asks all his court, like the magicians, the wise men, the soothsayers, the astrologers, the whatever, to come, and he goes, I need an answer. And they say, okay, well, tell me the dream. And he goes, I can't tell you the dream, I forgot. He goes, well, what are you asking of us? How can we give you the answer? We don't know ourselves. We can't tell you. And so he gets upset, wants them all killed. Daniel, with his friends, goes and prays. He says, Lord, give me the answer. So he gives him the answer to things that haven't happened yet. He gives him foresight. He gives him future prophecy. Then he comes, and the dream as well, comes to Nebuchadnezzar, gives him the dream and the interpretation. Only God can do that. Okay, so what we need to remember is that we need to have, the message tonight was called Wisdom Advocates Obedience. We looked at wisdom with the law and with God, how we are to obey, and how we can balance that between God and the law. And we'll leave it there. The next part of that chapter we'll do next time. Let's just have